What is going on, STR Nation? This is your brother from another mother, Manuel Pani, here by myself once again. This is gonna be the last show though. Mike is coming back from family vacation, and so after this one, I should be back with my co-host and brother, Mr. Shogren. Today we have a great show for you guys. I got to interview Chen. He started a company called CraftedStays. And long story short, Gil was a host himself, kind of got anxiety when he realized that Airbnb had kind of like a complete chokehold over his business. So if anything happened, he couldn't have reservations. And so he decided to build his own direct booking website. Took him quite a while to do it, and then decided to take it upon himself to find an easier, faster way to do direct booking websites. So if you are in the early stages, he has a super affordable solution for you, super customizable. I actually got to spend a little time with him after the show, and he walked me through front and back end of his platform. And I was super impressed. I even sent it to my head of marketing for her to take a look at it. And again, I think it is so important for us to continuously focus on growing and how to make our business better. And having a better, faster working direct booking website, it's always something that we should keep in mind and kind of aim for. He has a couple features on there that make it extra fast, which again, it will impact your customer experience. And a lot of the times on direct booking sites, I feel like that's where we lose customers, is just how complicated and kind of like slow our sites can be. So he has kind of addressed that. And just overall a super enjoyable conversation. And before we get into the show, a quote that I heard this week that I've been kind of pondering. We all heard the quote or the movie, maybe the pursuit of happiness. And I heard today somebody say, it's not about the pursuit of happiness, it's about the happiness in the pursuit. And that really hit home for me, especially as of lately. I find more and more joy in the process and in the moment and in the journey than anything else. So I'm not striving to be happy. I'm just happy as I'm striving. So yeah, I hope that kind of finds you wherever it finds you. And that if you're going through a moment where you are chasing happiness, you realize that just happiness is just in the right now, in the choices that you're making, in the thoughts that you're having. And so having said that, we're gonna welcome Gil Chan to the show. Hi Gil, how are you today?
I'm doing awesome. It's been really good.
Yeah, awesome. So kind of tell me a little bit about how you guys started, and and it sounds like you've been working on this creation of a baby almost, in a way. I think all tech founders kind of look at their product as their baby.
It definitely is my baby. So a little bit about me. I come from a tech background. I've been a product director for the last 15, 16 years. Pretty big companies. I was at Samsung for a little while, doing IoT. So a lot of stuff like you probably use some of the smart things software on a TV. That was by one of my earlier startups that I was part of. Been at 6 different startups now. On the hosting side, my wife and I got into short-term rentals about 3 years ago, pretty much like right at the beginning of COVID, maybe like after like the first 8 months of COVID. We had a long-term rental already. We're looking to kind of amplify that because I feel like our long-term really wasn't get as far.
Hmm.
At the same time, I had my tech job, and we were paying a lot in taxes, and we're trying to figure out like, okay, how do we put more money in our pockets or keep more money in our pockets? So we ended up finding out that there's some pretty significant tax benefits by doing short-term rentals. We got into it. We actually really fell in love with it. We bought our first cabin in the Smokies. I know a lot of folks says don't go in the Smokies. It's too saturated. It is, but we've actually done quite well for ourselves now. We have two in the Smokies now. And then we launched another one in Branson, Missouri late last year. All three cabins, I would say they're outperforming the market by a good 20, 30%. When I look on Price Labs, some of our cabins actually like, well, like our second cabin is 2x what the previous owner was making in the
Oh wow.
before that. Yeah, so that one's done really well. And like we just pay a lot of attention to revenue management. We spend a lot of time on design. So we try to, even though we're small operators ourselves, we don't let that stop us from really competing with the big boys. So it's done really well. And then at probably the first year, we started to get this a lot of anxiety of having all of our revenues come from Airbnb. Like at that point, probably 99% of our revenues were coming from Airbnb. And it just made me very uncomfortable knowing that like one entity had so much power in basically my ability to make money. So I tried to figure out like how do I hedge against that, and we ended up building out our direct booking site, and like all the big agencies were building it on WordPress. So I was like, okay, if the big agencies are doing it on WordPress, I probably should be too. So I ended up building my WordPress site. Gosh, took me 4 weeks to build it out. And I'm in tech. Like it should not have taken me that hard, but it took me a while. So it's not easy. We had like a certain aesthetics. We wanted to look really good, really well polished, really good navigation. It just took us a little while. And then at the end of that, I started to like show my mastermind peers, like, this is what we've been working on. And they got blown away. Like, this is like really nice. Like, hey, Gil, like, can you create mine? I was like, no way, I'm not doing that ever again. And my day job was in e-commerce, and I was helping Shopify was one of our biggest partners. We were partnering up with them, and I was like, wait a minute. In my day job, Shopify was allowing people to get into e-commerce really easily. Like if you had a product to sell, you can build out an e-commerce store really easily. But in our short-term rental space, if you wanted a direct booking site, you would take the cookie cutter PMS websites, and they do it right, but they're not like they don't let you like tell the brand story that you would want to tell to help convert. And the other side, you would have really expensive agencies that would charge you $5,000, $6,000 to build out a really basic site. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. So I left my W-2. I started a company called CraftedStays, and oh my god, it's been an amazing experience on like many different realms. Like one from a personal, like so I'm big on personal growth. I love pushing myself, learning new things. I've learned more in the last 9 months, evolved as a person in the last 9 months than I did, I would say, like the last 5 years. All the things that I had to push myself. We ended up starting a podcast, ended up hiring a team, building a company from the ground up, incorporating it all. Like I've grown so much in that time period. Like, so it's been super rewarding. At the same time, we've helped some phenomenal hosts like launch their direct booking sites, and starting to get emails coming in saying like, hey, I just launched and I started getting my direct bookings. I was like, whoa, that was like super fast. Like, how did you get that? So it's just been an amazing ride.
Yeah. I love that story. And as always, anytime you guys have heard us interview somebody that is in the tech space and kind of has this like, it's almost this like internal calling of like seeing things that don't work as well as they maybe could. And you take it upon yourself to be like, hey, how do I fix this problem? How do I make this better? One, we appreciate you as an industry because again, it's thanks to you guys that our industry has grown the way that it has in the last couple of years. Because again, if it wasn't for you guys going in and be like, from all the people, from the Price Labs guys to you to everybody else that has done what you do, I think our industry will still be quite slow and quite attached to Airbnb. And we'll quote the great Mark Simpson here: "It's like it's always great to never build your house on somebody else's land." And I think that was the initial anxiety that you felt of being like, 99% of my income is coming from Airbnb. They might decide one day to just switch it all, and what's going to happen then? So, before we go into some of the lessons that you learned from building your site and building the company, you said something in the beginning that it's always interesting to me that your cabins were doing 2x what the previous owner was doing. And you also said that you spend a lot of time on revenue management. So if you could give me a couple tips on what you think your best hacks are on Price Lab to help you maximize your revenue.
Yeah, maybe starting from the very beginning. Like, I think the most important thing is like really understanding who your ideal guest avatar is and who you're actually designing the space for. Because I would actually say like design was a heavy contributor into how we were able to be so successful in flipping this property. I think it was making like 65, 70 before, and it's a one bedroom pool cabin in the Smokies. So that's not terrible, but it's not great either. So I know that like it's underperforming. We're probably on track in 2024 to hit 140.
Oh wow. Yeah.
It's a one bedroom.
Yeah.
Like it's on average, my guest count is like 3.2, I think. So like I think design, like knowing who's going to your place, how you're designing it, what they're looking for, was probably the biggest contributor. And then outside of that, we look at booking windows quite often on, so we use Price Labs ourselves. So what I look at, and this is across all my portfolio properties, we look at the booking windows and figuring out like the one thing that I look at very often is the pacing, 7 day pacing. So what that tells me is in the last 7 days, where are bookings happening? Are they happening right now towards Thanksgiving? And I need to start to play around with that. So we paired that along with the enemy method. So we actually go into Airbnb incognito, look at it and see where we are on ranks. And we'll use those two to help us figure out like where do we need to spend our energy, because we can't spend it indefinitely on every single calendar day. But if we know that, for instance, someone's starting or there's a large market shift in booking in this particular weekend or weekday, then we'll spend all of our efforts in figuring out, okay, what is the market price right now? What's the average price? Do we feel like we're doing a better than that or below that? And starting to adjust on a more micro level. So we go like really high and then go really deep for price for revenue management. And right now, that pool cabin is operating on an annual basis, 95 occupancy. So it's really high. Like I barely have enough days to do. I will have to block my calendar if I have a big service that I need to do.
That's amazing. Okay, cool. So, like, definitely, I agree with the design aspect and definitely with the pacing stuff. What would you say to people that say, because I don't know the smokies, me myself personally, right? But what would you say to people that would hear this kind of stat and they may be in the smokies and they say, because I saw a video by Sean Rakovich the other day saying that if you're that close to 100% occupancy, you might be leaving money on the table. But you're definitely not leaving money on the table considering that you've done a property from 60, 70 to 140. So how would you respond to that?
Yeah, I forgot what the metric is in Price Labs where it tells you like how your occupancy is compared to the market occupancy. There's like an acronym for it. It's like MI something, MUI or something. But I am definitely in like the 2.0 range where I'm basically doubling the occupancy of the market. And they're comparing me against like one bedroom non-pool cabins as well too. So there's definitely some like mismatch in data there. But I definitely agree with you. And I agree that like I am probably over optimizing for occupancy and I could be charging higher in rents. But at the same time, I'm operating three short term rentals. I'm operating my business. I sleep a lot better with higher occupancy. So I can probably make the same amount of money by lowering my occupancy, raising my rates, and probably make around the same amount. But now as an operator, I actually feel really happy being able to host this many families, really bring in a lot of reviews, get more email marketing. Like that to me feels like for me, like it's a good sweet spot. I can play around with it. I can try to maximize the daily rates, but that means also spending a lot more time in there to like get every single penny out of every single booking. That to me is not like that's not where I want to spend my time.
No, I can appreciate that. So you're doing this for a little while. You got this aha moment, this moment of anxiety. I'm like, I can't rely on Airbnb. And then you decide to build this site. Took you 4 weeks to do it. I'm sure you're going through all the emotions under the sun. Give me some of your greatest lessons in terms of building a direct booking site that actually works and brings people and converts into bookings.
Yeah. I think probably the biggest learning and like I remember going and building my first site. I really was leaning on high aesthetics as the thing that I wanted to go for. I thought that like if I made it look really pretty, I have really good photos for my properties. I thought that was going to be the converter. And now I realize, like maybe like 2 years now since I built that first site, maybe 2.5 years now, it's really around like how you actually resonate with kind of going back to like ideal guest avatar. Who's staying at your place? Are you building at your site where they're looking for the right things? On that headline, are you speaking directly to them? So for instance, ours is family stays. So the first thing that you see on the headline there is really calling out to families. We don't just say like welcome to the Great Smoky Mountains. Like we don't talk about that anymore. It's really around like how do you actually like convince them that like family stays is what they want to go for. And we've been playing with different hero images that we want to showcase on there that really speaks to that avatar. So like I would say like that is the biggest learning. Outside of that, we've done a lot of optimizations now that we're deeper into it on what the experience is on both desktop and mobile. So like for instance, whenever we So one of the things that we do is we partner with the top five PMSs out there. So we do owner res, hospitable, host away, guesty, and hostfully. So those are our five PMS partners. So basically, with any of those five, we suck in all the property information, we suck in all the pictures, descriptions, all of that, and we're able to spin up the site really, really quickly. You can like if you rush through it, you could probably do it in like 15 minutes and get a really well polished site. Most folks take close to like an hour, maybe a couple hours to build it out because they're playing around with different messaging and so on. But all in all, like the thing that I want to get across is like when we download the pictures from the PMS, we have this really high resolution picture that we get from them. And what we do is like when we first launched, we were loading that same high resolution picture on mobile as well too. And we started to see that like our mobile drop-offs were really suffering on that. So we ended up when we download the image from the PMS, we actually convert it 4 times over. So we have two desktop versions, a really high res and a lower res, a tablet, and then a mobile one. So it loads really, really fast on mobile, and then it loads really, really well. Like it looks really good on desktop. So we didn't want to compromise on that. So like those are some of like the micro learnings along the way. We've done like navigational fixes where we try to now move the booking widget on or the booking search bar on the very top. In the very beginning, we didn't have that. We just had like a book now button that will go to a different page. And now we actually make it so that you can search right on the homepage. So we think a lot more about navigations. As we evolve our templates, we've started to bring some of those elements in there. So like we've started to evolve our template sets, but also really pay close attention to how people are coming onto the site, what are they looking for, and making sure that the booking process is very easy for them.
Yeah. So those are the things that you guys worry about and that you guys help with. When it comes to somebody, so if there's a host listening to the show now that wants to bring their own and do their own site with you guys don't provide any of the actual copy.
No, we don't. I have some really good copywriters I can refer them to that we've met through the years. But I'm all in like really knowing where you are really, really good and leaning on your network to help you bridge those gaps. So like we don't try to be like a services arm as well too. I mean, we may help down the road on some of those things, and I still onboard a lot of our customers to kind of help them through the process. But honestly, like I know folks that do email marketing way better than I can, and I would much rather like send someone to an expert on that rather than do it. But we also have a podcast of our own that talks about all things direct booking, where we use that platform to really do a lot of knowledge transfer so that you can gain the skills necessary to start building on some of these things. And you can still hire experts, but like just knowing the foundational pieces is really important anytime you're starting anything new.
Yeah, 100%. And so my question was going to be for those people that come on your platform and decide to make a site with you guys, but maybe are like, I don't have the money to also hire somebody for copy. Can you give them any tips or resources in terms of like people that you have found on YouTube or anything like anywhere like that that can help them learn how to write successful copy for vacation rentals? You can be like, look, it's not gonna be perfect, but at least if you want to get started and start taking direct bookings, this would be a great resource for you guys.
Yeah, I think like there's a couple of things that brings me to mind. Like I think that when you're thinking about copy, the easiest thing that you can really leverage is your reviews. So if you were to pull a data dump on all your reviews on Airbnb, what you'll find is if you actually do like one of those like word mappings, like where they show you the size of a word based on how many times it's being referenced. If you use that and you plug all your reviews in that, you'll start to see like really big words pop up. It's like families or pet friendly and those things. Those are actually your inputs into any copywriting because that's what people care about. That's what they talk about. That's what they enjoy. So if you're talking about like writing copy, and this is going to be even on your Airbnb page, leverage those reviews as data inputs on how to write better copy. Outside of that, on our podcast show, we've interviewed a few folks on. Actually, there's a if you look on Instagram, vacation rental copywriter, you'll find someone that has done really well on copywriting, and she has a free guide on there as well too. I'll be sure to like drop you a link on the show so you can kind of like find it.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. And so one of the questions that Mike and I always love to ask the people that are kind of starting a company and starting a business is one, where do you see the company going over the next couple of years? And then two, now that you're a little while in, where do you spend your time? So how does your day to day? look like between all, because you do quite a bit of things. You have kids, so you're,
We do have kids.
yeah, have kids, have properties, playing around with price labs, and now have this company. So how do you manage your time?
Yeah, I would say the thing I do in managing my time. So, admittedly, I felt like probably in the last 4 months I was in maintenance mode. It takes a lot of effort just to maintain the stuff that we were already going. Like even like maintaining your price labs, for instance, like that's maintenance mode. You're not really growing, growing in the sense of like stepping into like new things. So I felt like a lot of times I was spending a good like 70, 80% of my life on maintenance mode. And I started to like have a lot of anxiety. At the same time, I started investing into VAs and we brought in VAs to help me. And I still most of my VAs are still on the business side of things. So I don't use VAs on the hosting side. I've been thinking about it, but right now we've actually have a pretty well-oiled machine for our three properties. So it's not necessarily needed right now. But definitely on the business side, I was stretching myself way too thin. You probably know this, like bringing podcast guests onto the show, recording with them, building our social media, writing blog posts. Like a lot of those things takes a lot of efforts. So I've now shifted where I have invested pretty heavily in my VAs over the last probably like 5 months now that we've been bringing on them. And I've been a product director, so I had managing employees in the past. And I've always been one of those folks that like overinvest into people because I care a lot about people, about their growth, what their aspirations are, what skill sets going to help them learn. And we're now at an inflection point where I feel like my VAs know me so well. They know what my preferences are. They know my quality bar. They know my SOPs, like my processes now, where they're actually taking on most of the maintenance stuff. And now I get to spend time with our partners, with our customers, things that will grow the company. And I would say, like, if you asked me the same question like 2 weeks ago, I probably would not have the same conviction as I do today.
Yeah, I love that. 'Cause I think it's also so important as you grow in a company like yours, for you to stay in the selling and in the customer fulfillment part. Because I think
Yep.
a lot of people, as they're starting new businesses, go into the fulfillment side of thing too quickly, or they stop selling to fulfill. And unfortunately, in my experience, what happens when you do that is your business starts immediately dying. Because
Yep.
unfortunately, you are not in a position to focus on fulfillment. The reality of any business is that you have to continuously sell until you have a sales department, and even in that moment, you have to continuously sell because sales is the life of the business. So, where I think this is an important question anytime you're like growing a company is, have you already identified what your next key hire is going to be in terms of like growing your business, and when do you decide to kind of pull the trigger on something like that?
Yeah. I would say my next big hire will probably be either on the marketing or on the sales side of things. So I come from a product background. So I love working with working with customers, understanding what their pain points are, working with the business to figure out like where do we need to move the business towards, and then working with design and engineering to actually put that into practice and build really, really well performing products. That's my sweet spot. And that's why like we were able to launch the company so darn fast. We launched the company in a month and a half since inception. So we got up and running really, really quickly. So that's my sweet spot. What's not my sweet spot is on the marketing and sales end. So I had to learn a lot of sales processes, a lot of marketing processes, lead funnels, and all of those things from the ground up. And I've had some amazing coaches along the way in the tech space to kind of help me along with that stuff. But I'm still doing a lot of learnings from the ground up. I don't like it's stressful at times, but I've also grown a lot in that process. But moving forward, I do want someone to be able to take some of those things on. So I get to go back to the things that I love spending most of my time on, which is like talking to customers, figuring out where they want to be, what problems they have, and how do we use technology to solve that in a very efficient manner. So sales and marketing is probably where I want to spend my efforts or spend my efforts on hiring.
Yeah. And I love how driven you are to just like, again, like going back to the root of this whole situation is really coming from a place of like, hey, how do I help and serve? And how do I fix people's problems? And I think a lot of the times people lose sight of, hey, as much as, and I remember talking to Anurag from Plies Frabs, about this is like a lot of the times the departments don't talk to each other and they're like, this is super cool feature. And it's like, yeah, but nobody wants it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you're like, what's the point?
I mean, that I think that's when the time where, and I've coached and mentored a lot of product managers in the past, and I think the product managers that don't have a good pulse on where the customers are at, don't get a chance to speak to them, are the ones that are building in a silo where they could be launching products that doesn't resonate. I'm very fortunate that when you sign up for Crafted Stays, one of the first things we ask you is, do you want to book a getting started tour? That doesn't go to a VA. That goes to me. And so no matter how busy my schedule is, and I've had folks book out like 1 week in advance because my schedule is this busy, but every time I get them on the phone, it's good on both sides. I get to help the customer. I get to understand what their problems are, where they're going, what solutions they've tried, and they get the added benefit of like me helping them speed track to their goals. And hopefully, I still get to do this for as long as possible. Hopefully, I get to onboard every single customer. And there definitely is going to be a time where I have to offload that, but I get a lot of energy out of those moments. So, like,
Yeah.
I will probably like you'll probably have to pull me away from those calls, if anything.
Yeah, and it's funny because on the show that we just recorded, I was talking to the guest about the importance to me at least of finding a labor of love. And I think when you find a labor of love that really helps you not feel like you're working, or even in those moments where, like you said, like things are tough, there's a lot of stuff going on, it still sounds you like, well, I still want to do those things because they're important to me. And I think that is, again, the whole thing of entrepreneurship is if you feel that you're having to like yank yourself towards doing things every day, I would argue that you haven't quite found a labor of love. Because a labor of love is one that always pulls you into action, into decision, into discipline because you're doing something you love and you're so connected to the purpose of why you're doing it. That you're like, awesome. Like I get to do this every day. It's not like I have to, right? So where can people learn more about you and your company and maybe book a call with you?
Yeah. If you go onto our website, craftedstays.co, you can find out more about the company. You can take a look at some of our templates as well too. On the bottom of the page, you can see like our pricing guides and so on. We're pretty transparent about some of those things. You can book a call there as well too. You can sign up for the service. It's fully self-service, so you don't have to like go and hire someone to build your direct booking site. And you can just do it yourself, and it looks really really good. Extremely like and it will perform really well. I'm very very happy with what our team has built so far.
Awesome. And so the last question that we ask everybody that comes on the show is, what's your number one secret to success with short-term rentals?
I say find that thing that gives you energy and continue to do that. And that's with everything I do. I luckily have a very talented wife that will help me along with things that I'm not really good at. But the things I am very happy to do, I still do all guest comms myself because I like talking to people. I like making sure that I am there to serve them. And for me, like I'm so glad I got into short-term rentals. I was in long-term rentals before because it feels so connected to me. I love being a host. Can I do burrs and can I do long-term rentals? I could probably, but I probably won't find as much passion out of it. So like in short-term rentals, if you find that this is a niche that is yours, dive in. It goes so deep. You can make this a career-long development of yourself. But if it isn't, move to something else because it's a long road.
Hmm. Well said. I love that. And I love your passion for hosting. I love your passion for service. To me, those are super valuable things. And I think it's what makes a difference between a great host and a great business owner in general is being service and value driven, especially in a world that so often it's on a take versus give. And you feel like you lead from giving. And that explains why you've already experienced that like hockey stick kind of growth when it comes to your company and your business. So yeah, I'm excited to see what what you get up to.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, guys, that was the show for this week, and we'll see you next week. Ciao, guys.
Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.